There's something to be said for the idea that a sequel to Space Jam is almost definitely a better movie than the original on every level that matters, telling a more interesting story, having a more interesting premise, overall more interested in having an actual story to begin with, and having a better feel for the individual Looney Tunes characters as characters rather than interchangeable cartoon nonsense foils to bounce off a main human protagonist. Speaking of which, if nothing else, as an actor, LeBron James is indisputably better at playing LeBron James than Michael Jordan was at playing Michael Jordan, yet somehow it feels like less substantial work overall.
Bugs Bunny. What in the Matrix hell? What's going on here?
It's almost as though the omnipresent "we understand we're just cashing a gigantic check from Nike here" lackadaisical laziness of the original was a better fit to the material simply by virtue of its honesty. Yes, this is a movie based on a sneaker commercial starring a celebrity athlete with the endorsement deal as another commercial for his own comeback and a litany of other merchandising opportunities. How much effort are you actually expecting on the narrative side? So whereas it's almost part of an otherwise non-existent meta-joke that the original's quasi-sincere framing story about Jordan learning to be Jordan again by teaming up with cartoon characters feels somehow more artificial than the middle section where he's green screened into an animated basketball game, it feels like a strange miscalculation that New Legacy cuts away from its not uninteresting reality storyline about LeBron failing to connect with a fictional version of his youngest son to fit in a requisite number of Looney Tunes gags and pop references to technically qualify as a sequel to Space Jam. If nothing else, I shouldn't be wishing that a movie with the Looney Tunes should cut away from the Looney Tunes to tell me more about the celebrity guest star. But then, since movie studios in general and Warner Brothers especially have abandoned the keep it simple stupid approach ages ago, the narrative here requires much further convolution and tries to hang the proverbial lampshade on the entire concept of making a sequel to Space Jam in the first place through somebody's idea of a satirical self-takedown of trend-driven, research-focused studio corporate culture, which was probably written to sound funnier, or at least less dystopian, before AT&T flew Warner Brothers into a mountainside this past year and sold it off for scrap to Discovery. To wit, our story this time is actually about how Warner Studios has apparently digitized its media library and turned its company decision-making process over to an algorithm that's become self-aware and gone all Skynet in the computerized persona of Don Cheadle's Al-G Rhythm, who's tired of not getting credit for all the hit movies and TV concepts he's willed into being and wants to come out as the true brains behind the studio. Has he not been informed of how their past decade has been going, and schemes to draft King James as his public face to do so? But when LeBron rejects the offer, he abducts the NBA star's troubled, fictionalized for the movie son, who's feeling split between his father pushing him to stick to the fundamentals of his basketball practice and his own dreams of becoming a video game designer, and subsequently LeBron himself into the Warner Brothers serververse, manipulating the father and son into playing a charged-up virtual reality version of the kid's basketball but with power-ups video game in beta for the fate of the world, I think, with the son leading a team of superpowered versions of NBA and WNBA stars against LeBron and the original Toon Squad from the first movie, because he's managed to bump into Bugs Bunny along the way, who also has a B-plot rationale for needing to both reassemble his team and get back at the algorithm, the prologue of the film teasing a vague connection between James and Bugs that, for whatever reason, never really materializes or comes back into the plot in any meaningful way. What it all adds up to is a long-feeling, overly complicated walk through a set of Looney Tunes characters edited into other Warner Brothers movie sketches, followed by a long-feeling retread of the slapstick basketball game from the first movie, but this time with an audience filled out by stand-in cameos of familiar to less so Warner IP characters, clearly selected in the context of someone thinking that a game of Spot the Obscure Poll would become a big social media phenomenon for this. Nominally, the point here is meant to be LeBron getting past his fixation on fundamentals only all work and no play game philosophy and remembering how to have fun again, which sounds like the complete opposite of his career as a player, but whatever, at least it's an arc. Although the whole thing has the same narrative issue as the first one, where the stakes can't matter and have any internal logic, so we're just kind of waiting for the story to decide it's time for the part where one shot will decide who actually wins the game. As I said, a big plus is that this time the tunes are actually more recognizable as themselves again, even as it feels like they actually have less screen time amidst all the explaining of what's going on and how all the stuff that doesn't matter is supposed to work. You can honestly recognize, okay, that feels like a Bugs Bunny joke versus that's a Coyote gag, whereas in the original everyone is just doing get it because cartoons Tex Avery bits, because that was the requirements of the comedy. It's save for Lola Bunny, who, after having been retooled into having a personality for her Kristen Wiig-voiced incarnation on the Looney Tunes show, is back to having absolutely no personality at all here, but now it's no personality with the voice of Zendaya and less screen time. On the plus side, it's also fun to watch Don Cheadle chew the scenery in an extremely relaxed, effortlessly cool Don Cheadle sort of way. Roteness of the story itself aside, the general father-son through line comes together pretty well, even if it feels like what was meant to be building towards a secondary payoff for Al-G Rhythm's villain and his own issues with need for acknowledgement doesn't come together entirely. In the end, there's really no telling if this revamped Space Jam was ever going to be the kind of pop phenomenon the original was, given that it's been shunted off to the Warner Brothers post-pandemic joint release slate rather than having a full-court mass-market rollout that the Jordan version enjoyed, but it's an inoffensive, amusing thing that makes decent use of its gaming gimmick and at least doesn't overreach at the premise. So let's say 6 out of 10, but you know, I don't think we need to do this again anytime soon.
ahead.
Give me the Pentagon on the line now.
They are a plague that now sweeps through the worlds of man.
But something is coming. I can feel it. Dark forces are upon us.
They're called Heartless!
It will convert or kill every last human life, unless they can be stopped.
This circles around who Walt Disney really was.
He came up with systems that would make people work together better, optimizing the human race.
Light and darkness are fated to clash. A Keyblade war is upon us.
I visited once, and I met two boys I considered passing the Keyblade on to.
What were the boys' names?
They were Sora and Riku.
You're gonna need to get a team you can trust.
Oh, I already got one.
What is this, a pirate gun?
They'll pay for this.
On this barren soil, Keyblades of light and darkness were locked in combat.
Right here, right now, I am the law!
Walt, this one is for you, buddy.